Welcome back to the Wellness Digest. Today we're going to talk about the gut-skin connection and why glowing skin starts in your gut. So there's a saying that goes, the skin is the external mirror of your gut, and we believe this to be very true. So personally speaking, when I'm feeling stressed or eating a lot of inflammatory foods, I see it on my skin with a little bit of an eczema flare-up. There's a very good reason for that. There's something called the gut-skin connection, and today we're going to get into what that is, how your microbiome influences the state of your skin, and how to support it.
So let's dive right into that, the gut-skin connection. I was surprised when I started learning more about the gut microbiome and our intestines to learn that many people in the functional health space and researchers in the gut microbiome space, they talk about the gut being, or like the gut lining really being an extension of our skin. So at first I thought that was really confusing, but as you think about it, it makes perfect sense. We have the skin on the outside, and then essentially it turns into the mucous membranes in our mouth, in our esophagus, and then all the way through our digestive tract. And so that's why it makes sense when people say, our skin is the external mirror of our gut. Another fact that I found fascinating was when I learned that our intestines, if you kind of spread it out, it would be the size of a tennis court, which is wild. And at first you think that's basically impossible, but then when you think about it, our intestines are so finely folded into itself that, that's how we get that much surface area. And that's for good reason, because in our intestines, that's where a lot of the nutrient absorption happens. That's where our immune system plays such a key role. So it makes sense that there's a lot of surface area to really communicate with what we're putting into the body. So
I'd love to add to that too, that it makes so much sense when you think of the skin and then the internal mucous membrane as this connection of the skin, that if you have inflammation in your gut or something is off in your gut, that the skin, the outer skin is one of the first places that can show up.
Absolutely.
And, we've talked about this, but we do want to mention that this inflammation, this gut inflammation may show up for some people on the skin if they're more prone to skin issues. And some of that also is genetically determined. So for other people, this internal inflammation might show up as headaches or migraines or joint pain.
Brain fog.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and by skin issues, we mean not just eczema, we also mean things like psoriasis, even acne and dry skin. So it can be really a plethora of these inflammatory conditions that show up on your skin.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about, really how this connection happens and why it's so important. So first and foremost, our gut is responsible for the nutrients we absorb. And that includes nutrients that are extremely important for skin health, like zinc, vitamin D, and antioxidants. So if our gut microbiome is imbalanced and we don't have the right mix of bacteria to help us break down and absorb those nutrients, or if there's inflammation and again, we're not absorbing these nutrients properly, that's when our skin is essentially not getting the nutrients it needs to be healthy and glowing and, clean from, or pure, I would say. Secondly, so much of the immune system also sits in the gut. Some estimate that 70 to 80% of the body's immune cells are actually located in the gut. And it makes perfect sense because the gut is such a gatekeeper between what we take in from our external world and what we absorb into the body. So when our gut is inflamed, that's the starting point for a whole cascade of immune system imbalance and also inflammation.
And with the immune system, that would mean that if there's a little trigger that goes into your bloodstream, the immune system overreacts. Whereas it might not need to overreact, but it overreacts and forms, when it comes to the gut-skin connection, it forms these flare-ups on the skin.
Exactly. And again, especially if people are prone to something like eczema, that immune system imbalance then and that extra inflammation is often kind of the trigger that exacerbates what's already there, or that kind of sets off a new flare up if you're prone to that. Another really important aspect is kind of again connected to this inflammation that starts in the gut, leaky gut. We've talked about this so many times on the Wellness Digest here as well as in other formats. when our gut is out of balance, when there's inflammation in the gut because of all these modern life stressors, which we'll get into a little bit later, our gut barrier becomes leaky. And that essentially means that things that we don't want in our bloodstream can now leak into our bloodstream, signaling to the immune system, hey, there's an intruder, and then the immune system goes into attack mode. And that's good. Like the immune system that's the job of the immune system, is to fight off these intruders. But the problem becomes when those are not real intruders that we should be fighting against, like a germ, but these things that are just leaking into our bloodstream because our gut barrier is compromised. And so leaky gut, research has shown this over and over again. Leaky gut is a root driver, a core driver for inflammation in the gut and inflammation throughout the body and immune system dysregulation. And this connection between inflammation in the gut, immune system dysregulation, and then how that can trigger skin flare-ups or skin conditions, that's really well documented in research. And that's really why we're talking about this today, because there is such an immense connection. And then lastly, this is really important too, the gut is such an important detoxification organ. And many of the functional medicine practitioners and, holistic practitioners, nutritionists that we work with also at Omnibiotic, they all agree that when our gut is inflamed or out of balance, the detoxification and elimination often also gets compromised. People have constipation or they're not eliminating properly in other ways. And that impacts our detoxification pathways. And when our detoxification pathways are not working properly, that can lead to things like eczema, acne, skin breakouts, especially for women as we have this, monthly hormone cycle where we really need our body and our gut and our liver to work well together to detox excess hormones. All right, so that was kind of the 101 on the gut-skin connection. And, I think we've kind of now touched on what are the different mechanisms. Like we need a healthy gut for nutrient absorption, for immune system balance, and for detoxification and hormone regulation to support our skin health. But I would love for you to just talk a little bit more about what are the ways that the gut microbiome can actually be disrupted. I just mentioned leaky gut as a main issue that we find in the gut, but there's also another one, which is dysbiosis. So maybe you can quickly elaborate on that.
A gut dysbiosis means a gut imbalance, and that can take two courses. So you can have low good bacteria, or you can have an overgrowth of unwanted bacteria or yeasts like Candida. So both of those situations will essentially also contribute to inflammation in the gut, leaky gut, and then inflammation throughout the body, which in many cases can show up as skin issues.
Exactly. And maybe just quickly to add to that, especially on the low good bacteria, that might not sound like a big issue, but if you're lacking some of these important groups like bifidobacteria, which are so critical for immune system balance and nutrient absorption, which all again is also the kind of the foundation for good skin health, that's actually a potentially big driver for, disruptions to the skin.
Yeah. All right, so what are some of these gut disruptors that can contribute to having a leaky gut or a gut dysbiosis?
I mean, we've talked about these on multiple occasions, even on the Wellness Digest. I think what's so impactful is once you realize that there's a few kind of categories of gut disruptors, that's what they disrupt your gut. And then how does that translate? Well, that, because the gut impacts so many things, it impacts our immune system, our digestion, our skin health, our brain function, and, many more things. But yeah, let's dive into these. First and foremost, antibiotics. It's nothing new. Antibiotics kill both the bad bacteria that are making us sick as well as the good ones. So it's so important to replenish the gut. I know many people actually, and I think even you and I were talking about this earlier, in the past when we've taken antibiotics, it wasn't uncommon that a few days or weeks later our skin was acting up, we were having breakouts, or you're just starting to get these other kind of gut-related issues further down the line. Second, processed foods. A diet that's high in things that give inflammation in the gut, high in processed sugars, additives, chemicals, sweeteners, that's just all going to exacerbate that inflammation in our gut. On this food point, I actually also want to add that if you know that certain foods cause inflammation for you, or that you're reacting to things like whether it's dairy, gluten, soy, anything that you already experience a reaction to, that for sure will also increase inflammation and kind of disruption in your gut. So also steering clear of any foods that don't love you back, as you like to say. Fiber deficiency, another thing related to food. It is estimated that 90% of Americans are not meeting their daily fiber intake. That's a wild statistic to me. Incorporating more fiber into your diet, whether it's through the foods you're eating or even a fiber supplement, is such a powerful way to feed your good gut bacteria, because fiber is food for our gut bacteria. And chronic stress. Chronic stress is something that I think even I didn't fully recognize until I was really diving into the science. We know that cortisol, our main stress hormone, actively disrupts our gut barrier. It can increase inflammation, it increases leaky gut in our intestines, and it can even disrupt our gut microbiome.
Yeah, doesn't stress kill our good gut bacteria?
Yeah, it causes disruptions, mainly because of this inflammation that that the cortisol that causes inflammation in the gut, which causes these disruptions. And we know that chronic stress increases other inflammatory markers like oxidative stress as well in our body. Oftentimes, chronic stress also impacts our sleep, which just adds fuel to the fire. So I would say those are kind of the top 4 disruptors to our gut microbiome.
Yeah, and I love what you said before. Like, there's really 3 or 4 top gut disruptors. We just went over them: antibiotic use, chronic stress, starving your good gut bacteria with a fiber deficiency, and processed inflammatory foods. And once you're aware of them, we're not expecting you to necessarily avoid all of those things, but knowing that you can nourish your gut, especially if you're experiencing any of these top disruptors, is so key to living well.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I think it's also balance is key, right? Like, I mean, my personal take, anyways, and I know you feel this way too, is like you don't always have to do all of these things. But if you know that you're in a season of life where you've traveled more, you are eating out more, and you're just eating some more of these inflammatory foods, then maybe trying to counterbalance that, either through like a good probiotic, which I know we'll talk about too, or maybe then sleeping a little bit more, or just kind of making sure that if those are the 4 buckets in which you're depleting your gut and your health, that you're not kind of draining all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
And, just real quick before we move into how you can support your gut skin axis, I do just want to emphasize that these factors, like these buckets that we just talked about, all of these disrupt the gut, can or have the potential to disrupt the gut microbiome, increase dysbiosis or trigger dysbiosis, which then sets off this cascade of like leaky gut, inflammation in the gut, and then systemic inflammation throughout the body, which then can show up as things like skin conditions. So it's really this vicious cycle, starting with inflammation in the gut that then disrupts the immune system and kind of causes this cascade from there on out. But yeah, now let's talk about what you can do on the daily to support your skin and your glow through the gut and through lifestyle.
So one major way to nourish the gut and support the gut-skin connection is by taking a really good targeted probiotic and potentially also a prebiotic, because that will help balance your gut flora. It will strengthen your gut barrier, reduce inflammation, and also balance your immune system, which with the immune system, it's really all about that balance. You want the immune system to react to intruders. However, you don't want it to overreact, because that overreaction can fuel skin conditions like eczema. I'd love to highlight 2 of our products here. So starting with Omnibiotic Balance Probiotic. This was actually the first probiotic that was created by Institut Allergosan over 30 years ago. It just celebrated its 30th birthday. And it's one of our most popular products. I love this product too. I've taken it for a long time. So Omnibiotic Balance improves the composition of your gut flora. So it balances bacteria and yeast levels. It also includes a lot of bifidobacteria species that will help balance your immune system. In addition, it will help optimize digestion and bowel function and improve nutrient absorption. We talked about this earlier. You need to make sure that the nutrients in your foods and other supplements like zinc and vitamin D, which are so important for your skin integrity and your skin health, are actually absorbed well by your gut. So that's an amazing product. And then second of all, OmniLogic Immune, that's one of our prebiotics. This helps feed your beneficial gut bacteria. It includes specific fibers that are the favored food of these bacteria that help improve and strengthen the immune system. And then it actually also includes some other vitamins and minerals that support your immune function and immune health, like vitamin D and zinc.
So just real quick before we move on, you can actually get these two products combined as a bundle on the website. It's called the Immune Support Bundle for a discount if you're interested.
Hannah, I also really want us to talk about this new study with Omnibiotic Balance that came out on skin health because it's such a great time for this to come out, very timely.
Absolutely. So as you just mentioned, Lena, Omnibiotic Balance just celebrated its 30-year anniversary. And with that, there was a really exciting new study that came out. It was done in Europe, in Austria. So this study, it was using Omnibiotic Balance. 1,400 participants took Omnibiotic Balance over the period of 8 weeks, and they were asked to report at multiple points in the study on markers regarding immune system strength, as well as skin health. And so I'm going to read some of the results that really stood out to me. So 83% of participants reported an overall reduction in skin complaints. 81% of participants reported a reduction in eczema symptoms, 84% reduction in hives, 83% reduction in acne-related issues, 88% reduction in allergy symptoms, 76% reduction in infection susceptibility. So that's including colds, anything that's kind of giving you the sniffles or that shows that your immune system is activated. And an 88% reduction in GI discomfort. Think constipation, bloating, gas, etc.
These are really impressive results. I mean, we're talking about big reductions in skin issues, but also immune susceptibility and GI discomfort. I mean, amazing.
So, this just goes back to this point that the gut really is a control center for our health. And by nourishing our gut microbiome, especially with a multi-strain, multi-species targeted probiotic like Omnibiotic Balance, you really are improving so much more beyond digestion. You're enhancing your skin health, you're balancing your immune system, and you're improving just your overall resilience. I do also want to say that I know for a lot of customers here, especially in the US, they love Omnibiotic Balance for like gas, bloating, and constipation. So, and that is a huge impact in itself. Like if you have regularity and optimal digestion, that's huge in itself. And then it's an added bonus that it's really supporting you beyond that.
I want to end this episode by doing a few quick questions for you. So first of all, can probiotics really help acne or eczema?
Yes, absolutely. As we just discussed, probiotics help keep our gut in balance. And with that, we're lowering inflammation in the gut, we're supporting our gut barrier, and we're restoring balance to the immune system, all of which can really help manage skin flare-ups from the inside out.
So if I'm taking a really good probiotic like Omnibiotic Balance, do I still need topical skincare?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, your skin is, you need to moisturize, you need to cleanse. Like skincare is such an important part of keeping the skin healthy. And especially if you're prone to dry skin or eczema, acne, skin conditions, supporting your skin topically is a huge driver. I think of probiotics as almost like your first step in skincare. You're replenishing and restoring from the inside out so that you're supporting your skin also from the internal world.
Yeah, and I mean, you've seen people who glow even with very minimal makeup or skincare. And most likely those are the people who are living a pretty, wellness conscious life. And they're probably taking a good probiotic. And last but not least, how long will it take for me to see results of supporting my gut with a probiotic and prebiotic?
Yeah, so there is clinical studies like the one we just talked about with Omnibiotic Balance that showed results within 8 weeks. That's about 2 skin cell turnover cycles. That being said, it really depends on the starting point of your gut. If your gut was extremely, inflamed, out of balance, you had pathogens, you had overgrowth, or if your skin issues have been really persistent for a long time, it can take more than that to really fully restore and replenish. But yeah, I think for many people, about 8 weeks is a good starting point. So let's do a quick recap to close out the episode. A healthy gut is such a core foundation for healthy, glowing skin. As we've just talked about, the skin is often considered the external mirror of our gut. So keeping inflammation low in the gut supports our overall inflammation throughout the body, supports our immune balance, and with that, supports our skin from the inside out.
We would love to encourage you guys to take Omnibiotic Balance and OmniLogic Immune for 8 weeks and observe the difference in your digestion and bowel function, but also on your skin, and let us know how it goes.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.